Hi, my name's John. Welcome back to the Reflactor channel. If you're upgrading from the stock eyepieces that came with your telescope and you want to try an eyepiece that has a wider field of view, well, SVBony has a couple of popular options. Namely, they have their red banded product line and they have their gold banded product line. In this video, I'll compare both of these product lines, and later on I'll share a surprising find that might actually eliminate one of these from contention. By the way, I bought both of these with my own money. SVBony is not a sponsor yet. And SVBony, if you happen to be watching, call. Well, let's start with your baseline eyepieces. I'll assume that your current eyepieces are something like Kellner's or Huygens or even some Plossls. You know, the Plossls are one of the most common eyepiece designs because they're both good and affordable. Now, Plossl is not a brand name. It's actually a lens design invented over 160 years ago by a German optician named Georg Plossl, this guy. It consists of basically two sets of doublets for a total of 4 lenses. Now, each of these doublets is an achromat. That's just fancy, and it means that it will have few color defects. This makes Plossl's the Honda of eyepieces. They're solid, they're reliable, and in fact, it's hard for manufacturers to make a bad Plossl. But low-cost eyepieces, like Plossl's and Kellner's and that kind of thing, well, they have a couple of shortcomings because of their designs. First, they have a relatively short eye relief, and that's basically how close your eyeball has to get to this exit lens to get a good view through there. And lastly, and of course this is the big money problem, their apparent field of view, and that's that cone that we were talking about. It's about 50 degrees for Plossl's. Now, you can think of the apparent field of view as the cone of vision, so Plossl's have a pretty small circular view of whatever you're looking at. Not quite as tight as some of the other affordable lens designs, but they're still on the small side. Now, with all that said, Plossl's are a great place to start. That's what I did. But I have, of course, I've since upgraded. So what was my first real upgrade? Well, I definitely wanted to get an eyepiece that had a wider field of view. So this is the one I got. I got the SVBony Gold Band of eyepieces. These have a field of view of 66 degrees. That's a much wider cone than the Plossl's have. Now, that wider field of view does a couple of things for you. First, it gives you a larger, more immersive view, right? You almost have to move your head side to side to see the edges of what you're looking at. This is often called a porthole view. Now, secondly, when that circular area that you're looking at gets larger and larger, then the object that you're looking at takes longer and longer to go across the view. Now, this is actually very helpful when you're, say, sharing your telescope with somebody, because you can get it lined up so that the object is in, say, the top right of the screen, and then it has a long time to travel across that screen while you switch observers, and everybody gets a really good view. SVBony also has a red band product line, which has a bigger field of view. It's 68 degrees. Now, that's really only 2 degrees larger than the gold band, but we'll get to that in a second. Both of these eyepieces come in 4 focal lengths. So let's go over the focal lengths that these come in. SVBony made it pretty easy to compare because both the gold and the red come in the exact same focal lengths. Let's start with the lowest magnification, and that is the 20 millimeter eyepiece. Look at this. Look at those nice big lenses they have right there. Each of these has 5 lens elements in the 20 millimeter. They're pretty close to being about the same length. All right. Next up is the mid magnification. These are the 15 millimeter. Note that these are almost the same length as well. Each of these 15 millimeters have just 4 lens elements. Now let's jump over to the higher magnification. These are the 9 millimeter. Now these have 6 lens elements in them, and oddly enough, some of the lens elements are actually in the base, in these barrels right here. Kind of interesting, right? And let's see. Lastly, we have the high magnification. This is the 6 millimeter focal length eyepiece. This has 5 lens elements, and it also has a lens element that is in the base, or the barrel right there. All right, let's talk about the weight comparisons. Now, these eyepieces are not really extremely heavy compared to some of the larger eyepieces out there that you can buy, but I figured I would talk about this. Also, one thing to keep in mind, the weights that they have listed on their website are incorrect. So these are the weights that I found by measuring here on basically a food scale that we have. So the 20 millimeter, we've got red versus gold. The red is a little bit heavier. It comes in at 87 grams. The gold comes in at 82 grams. Over here we have the 15 millimeter focal length. Red comes in at 66 and gold comes in at 63. Consistently, the gold eyepieces are always a little bit less than the red counterparts. Now let's complete this with the 9 and the 6. So we have the 9 millimeter focal length. The red eyepiece weighs in at 101 grams. The gold eyepiece weighs in at 93 grams. And over at the 6 millimeter focal length, red comes in at 101 and gold comes in at 93. Now, something of interest here is that both of the red ones weigh the same. They're both 101 grams, and both of the gold ones are 93 grams. And I should mention that both of these eyepieces have one or more of their lens packs in the barrel down here in the base. So you can see right there. Now, I tried to see where these slight weight differences came from among all of these eyepieces, and I figured out it seems like it's in the main body, but I really couldn't quite figure out what it is. I thought maybe it might be these extra rubber pieces here, but you know, I just don't know what the true cause is. There may be just the difference in diameter of the material and the metal that they use in the eyepieces. The eye relief is good on both product lines. For the gold, there's about a 16 millimeter eye relief between the lens and where your eyeball would be. And of course, the red line is just 1 millimeter longer at 17 millimeters. I personally couldn't tell the difference between the two. You know, 1 millimeter is pretty small. One of the key reasons that I love these eyepieces so much is the size of these exit lenses. It doesn't matter red or gold. They both have these giant exit lenses right here. If you look at these compared to, say, a Plössl, like this, how small that exit lens is, and let's just take, these are both 6 millimeters. Yeah, these are both 6 millimeters. So take a look at these, those exit lenses. There's a drastic difference, and this one is so much easier to use than, say, this one. Visually, I could not tell the difference, like, at all. The best example is when looking at the moon. When I use the 9 millimeter eyepieces from both of the product lines to look at the full moon through my Orion 8-inch Dobsonian telescope, the viewing circle just fits the moon, right? But it fits perfect on both eyepieces, gold or red. I couldn't see any optical differences or any differences in field of view, that cone of vision. So basically, I personally couldn't see a difference. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that these views are bad. In fact, the views are much wider than a Plössl, and they're very enjoyable. I love these eyepieces. I'm just saying that I personally couldn't tell the difference. All of the eyepieces have the standard 1 1/4 inch barrel diameters, but there are differences in barrel shapes. For example, the gold line has this tapered look to it, and the red line has this skinny little belt region right here. Now, that'll come into play later on. Let's talk about price comparisons. There's basically a $10 difference between the gold and the red. The red is $10 more than the gold. As of right now, at the very end of 2022, the whole set of gold eyepieces, total price is $120, and the whole price for the entire set of red is $130. Of course, that's probably going to go up in the future, but as of right now, that's what the prices are, and there's basically a $10 difference between the two. As far as performance and value goes, these are killer eyepieces. Either one of these would make a fine upgrade to the world of larger field of view eyepieces. Okay, now for the surprise. During my testing, I did find one difference that makes me somewhat hesitant to recommend the red version of the eyepieces, and I found it by complete accident. So I have two Barlow lenses here. One of them uses the old-fashioned, just a tightening screw. It's very simple, right? The other one uses, I guess it's somewhat new, it has a tightening belt in there. It's hard to see, but it's in there. It's got a metal belt that goes around, and this of course clamps the belt tight. So what I found was that when I took the red lenses, and they have that skinny waisted barrel right there, and I put them in the belt tightener, and I tighten that down like that, they actually don't tighten down. In fact, they're kind of loose and wobbly and pop out. Now they won't fall out, but they're just loose and wobbly, and they just won't tighten down. But if I were to take the gold line eyepiece, if I take the gold line eyepiece and I put it in here, it has the tapered barrel, right? Then that is rock solid. That's not going anywhere. Let's move over to the traditional Barlow with the screw. And, well, we'll start with the red one. There. And that's pretty tight. And, of course, let's go with the tapered barrel on the gold. And it's also pretty tight. So this makes me somewhat reluctant to recommend the red one if your Barlow lens has the belt tightening device. If you have a standard single little screw tightening device, then they both work. So please choose accordingly. If you do plan to upgrade your stock eyepieces, I highly recommend the SVBony Gold line of eyepieces. That big 66-degree field of view is really a treat. And those giant exit lenses are very easy on the eyes. Overall, this entire set is an incredible value. If you really want those rubber grips though, and you don't have a Barlow with the little belt tightening mechanism, then go ahead and get the red line of eyepieces for just $10 more. Down in the description box, I have Amazon affiliate links for both sets of the eyepieces. Since I don't have any sponsors, I'd be very much obliged that if you decide to get either one of these, if you could please use those links down in the description box. Well, there is one more thing. You know, I used these affordable eyepieces for years and years, and it took a while before I made the jump into a wider field of view eyepiece. And I wanted to share with you that the first time I used one of those, it was a little bit bewildering, especially when looking at the moon, because it took up such a much larger section of the view, and you had to search for the edges. This is especially true when you get up to the higher fields of view, like 82 degrees. And that bewilderment only lasted a few hours, because I then put one of the old Plossls back in, and I saw that little tiny view, and I realized, wow, you can't really go back after seeing that amazing wide field of view angle. So I hope that you enjoy your new wide field of view eyepieces. Clear skies, everybody.